Madam President. When we first began this legislative session in January, it was full of anxiousness and promise. And the single biggest goal that we had was to address a budget that had a $3.7 billion hole. And I was ready. We were ready to make some tough decisions. We were ready to make some constructive cuts. And I was full of the enthusiasm that we have a new governor. We had a new governor and a new vision that we were going to make a positive contribution to the same old ways that we used to do business. The tax more, the spend more, the borrow more. And then as we began the legislative process, our committees met. We met the new chairs. We deliberated. We reviewed over 3,000 proposed bills in the various committees. And we screened through the leadership of the committee to vet these bills, to ensure that the expertise and the evaluation, the due diligence was undertaken. And then we had public hearings on those bills in which we brought in the public. We brought in expert testimony. We vetted and interviewed and tried to do the best we could to understand each and every bill that we evaluated. And then we deliberated some more, screened the bills a little bit more, and then had a committee meeting to joint favorably approve them. It really is part of, an integral part of our legislative process. But this budget blew a hole in that legislative process. Because this budget, in talking about the process of combining the budget with the implementer, included legislation that was never vetted, that was never had a public hearing, and then we inserted it in the dark of night in a yes or no budget vote that we're going to have today. It's remarkable. It's remarkable to remember, as much as we talk about the budget, I'm talking about the process. The way we have implemented bills and policy in this budget is a travesty to the legislative process. It is a tremendous disrespect to the people who came and testified, the people who submitted testimony, the people who poured their hearts out to us to share their thoughts and ideas as it relates to each and every legislation. This budget document included bills that did not have a public hearing, and one such example is the public option insurance policy program that is in this budget. Another such example is the discussion of how we fund a debt-free college. The idea that even though as the ranking member in higher education, we talked about the idea of debt-free college. We debated it and we agreed to disagree in committee. We referred it to the necessary financial and budget-making committees, and they voted out of that. But presto, it appears in this budget with an entirely different funding mechanism that has not been voted on, that says, we will give you debt-free college. But wait a second, we'll fund it with the possibility of an internet lottery game system that has not been vetted by the Public Safety Committee, that has not been approved. But we're going to tell the rest of the world we've done some wonderful things, that we're going to give you debt-free college. But wait, we have to wait till there's money. Again, these are two examples out of many in this 567-page document that we got just days before. And I would propose that if we had more time to read through this, we would find more gems. of betraying the legislative process. So, I propose what this budget, what this process does. Why do we have the legislative process at all? Why don't we just come in the first week of June and just throw the bills in there and let's just vote on it? Let's not put up the charade of saying, we hear you, we're listening to you, and your voice matters. Because what this document that we will vote on says, you know what? We in the state capitol, we the decision makers, we the budget writers know better than you. And you wonder why people don't trust government. You wonder why people, when they hear that we're going to do one thing, they brace themselves for something else. When you look at this budget and you talk about a lack of funding for transportation, and then you find that money is diverted out of the Special Transportation Fund. It's not swept. It's not taken out of the lockbox. It's diverted. You know what the people on the street think? It thinks and believes and has been validated is that you can't trust government. It's remarkable. We never cease to disappoint in that arena. We do it over and over and over again. No wonder people just get jaded. It's remarkable. So, as we talk about this budget, many of my colleagues have talked about the numbers, about the dollars, and about the accounts in particular. I would say the process is broken. And we have done this over and over and over again. It is not bipartisan. It is not bicameral. It isn't even grassroots. Most of my colleagues that are going to be voting on this have not read the complete bill. How could you? You would need a CPA and a legal degree to be able to filter it through. But one thing that's clear for people up and down the street that we represent, their interests are not represented here. So I'm absolutely appalled at this process. Whether you agree with this budget or not, the process in which we undertook this is the prime reason that people will never trust any product we put out here. That being said, I do not support this budget for financial reasons. It seems the only people that benefit from this are special interests, built-in entities, people that hire well-informed and well-connected lobbyists. And it seems with the lack of initial taxes on the earned income and et cetera, the only people we're punishing are the middle class and the working class. When I look at all the taxes that are being imposed on consumers and the working class and the middle class, this has to be, in my 10-year experience in this building, the most regressive tax budget I have ever had the displeasure to vote on. It's remarkable. We're going to make people pay for their dry cleaning. We're going to make people pay to have their prepared foods. We're even going to figure out a way how we're going to tax people on parking meters. Then you combine the fact that we will be raising the minimum wage, imposing a payroll deduction to implement, as other people in this country said, one of the most generous family medical leave. It's the small businesses and the working class that gets hit over and over and over again. We tax too much, we spend too much, we borrow too much. I don't agree with this budget. I'm absolutely appalled at the process. And to just add icing to the cake, when you read through the earmarks, or a less graceful term, the pork that's in this, it's remarkable. It is absolutely stunning in its audacity. When you think we began January in this legislative session with the cloud of $3.7 billion hanging over this state, we now, through this budget, created a balanced budget. We didn't raise taxes, but voila, that $3.7 billion is gone. And now we have more than enough money to be able to give benefits to wonderful organizations. But I was just talking to people when I was reading through this budget. The idea that as we are raising taxes, as we are borrowing, that we find $50,000 to give to a Little League. We find $37,000 to give to a Boy Scout troop. We have found money to give to a wonderful Greek Orthodox church right in the Bridgeport-Fairfield area. These are all great organizations. But wait a second. Isn't our state broke? When do we have the largesse to be able to give these kind of benefits? You know, it's sort of that uncle that comes in the holidays, that comes bearing gifts for everybody to be the most liked individual. But that uncle doesn't have a penny to his name. But he's living off a credit card. He wants to make everybody happy. He wants to be the most popular person at the holiday gathering. But then, boy, after the holidays, he's piled on with debt. He's going back to every one of those relatives and saying, "Can you spare a dime? Can I borrow some money?" We all know those uncles or aunts. They want to be grand. They want to be generous to everybody. They just can't say no. And you know what? That's what this budget shows me. We can't say no. And we continue to kid ourselves, to kid the people, and ultimately push the burden down the road for the next legislative session, for the next generation to bear the burden. Because right now, we're going to pat ourselves on the back and say, boy, is this a great budget. CCM doesn't hate it. Cost doesn't hate it. Our municipalities are happy. Education, which is critical. Where are we coming up with the money? I look forward to listening more to this debate, but right now, I'm disillusioned with the process. I'm disappointed with our lack of discipline. And ultimately, and most important of all, the only loser in this budget are not Republicans, are not lobbyists. It's the Joes and the Jills that are working their days, trying to pay the mortgage, trying to pay the bills, and we have now just added the costs when they go to the grocery store. We've now just added costs that if they're trying to make a living as a small business, they're going to work a little bit harder just because we in the General Assembly can't say no. I hope we find the courage in the future to do so. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator Hwang. Senator Martin?